Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Mainframe Virtual Summit, that is. In this session, Intelligence and Automation delivers on the promise of the self-driving data center. Thanks for joining us everyone, and welcome back. Let's meet our featured presenters for this session. First we have Scott Broad. Scott, you are the Assistant Vice President for IT Infrastructure at BHI. Welcome, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Jeff Henry, you are VP Product Management at CA Technologies. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And Frank Kine, you are an editor, instructor, and consultant at Watson & Walker. We're really glad you could be here. So let's get started. Scott, we're going to start with you. Talk about your IT environment and responsibilities.
Sure. I am responsible for running the 24/7 operations for all of our IT infrastructure. Everything from empty rack space right up to the operating system, open systems, Windows, networking, and mainframe and enterprise storage.
Excellent. What are some of the challenges you face?
A lot of our challenges are when there's issues and when issues arise. We went from going from a very reactive shop, and we're trying to get to a more proactive approach. Instead of having customers tell us that things are down and applications are not performing well, we want to get to a reactive where we're already on top of it and we're getting the right people involved a lot faster than having to wait hours to get resolutions.
Yeah, I look forward to talking about how you're approaching some of those challenges. Frank Kine, what are you hearing from some of your clients and customers about these challenges?
Similar challenges to Scott here. One of them is application complexity, so that the applications are so complex and so many components, so many moving parts, it can take a long time just to identify when an application is having a problem. What are the components that play a role in that? One of the knock-on impacts of that is that you have a problem, you get 10 messages from different components all saying, I have a problem, and you don't know, is it one of those 10, or it could be something that's not giving you any message at all. Which results in longer time to identify the problem, so more customer impact, and also more time on behalf of the people that are trying to investigate all this. And the last one is new applications and new technology that people just haven't had the time yet to build up the experience. So when there's a problem, it can take a long time trying to delve into how do I actually figure out what's wrong here.
Yeah, Jeff Henry, any of these challenges resonate with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when we think about what we're trying to do from an operations standpoint, we've had years now where the intelligence is all within the subject matter experts of the teams. And they're dealing with more and more data, more and more systems, and a much more virtual and diverse nature of this. So what we're trying to do by leveraging a technology like machine learning is to be able to get some of this intelligence into the system, so that instead of a programmer having to come up with a rule for everything we're trying to look for, every pattern we're trying to glean, every automation that we're trying to run, that the machine can learn from that history. The machine can build those kind of baselines. They can build those kind of patterns so that we can take advantage of those. And as Frank has pointed out several times, it gives that SME an assistant. We can get from those huge boardrooms or these huge calls where people get on, how do we find root cause, what's wrong, down to what are the couple of people that really needed to be involved? How do we get to that root cause quicker? So Frank has been great about bringing some of these insights to the table, looking at how we can actually leverage some of the machine learning. And then customers like Scott, with our validation programs, continuously test what we're putting out there and making sure it delivers the results we're driving towards.
Yeah, does that sound familiar to you, Scott, the conference calls?
Yeah, I've been on way too many of those calls where you have 50 people or however many people in every area, and everyone's saying it's not me, it's not me. And by the time, and a lot of these problems have, as Frank was saying, there's a lot of different symptoms that are leading up to them, and a lot of them are very similar. And it's never the symptom, it's never the victim. It's always something way far behind. So the ability to be able to narrow down and to get a faster response instead of having 20 people, you can narrow it down to a certain area where, especially if you've seen the problem before, you can get to that resolution a lot faster.
Frank, let's continue on the benefit talk. How do you see these among your clients?
One of the things I see is that all of this can crunch much more data in much less time than was possible by humans. So it means that they can identify the root cause of the problem which means the customer has less impact sooner because they can fix the problem. It also frees up time from the technicians. They're not firefighting all the time now, meaning hopefully that they can take their skills and their knowledge of the personalities and the politics and everything else that it's involved in running a site, and improve the infrastructure, the environment, to make it more resilient, so you get less problems in the first place. It's a bit like a chicken and egg situation. I think that'll make a big difference. That's probably the main benefits.
And Jeff, where are you seeing customers on, say, the adoption curve and the awareness of these benefits and how they map to the challenges we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that when we look at the adoption models and we look at how are people taking advantage of analytics, how are people growing into that machine learning concept, I think most are starting in the nascent spot of being able to say, I want to be less reactive and far more proactive. So how do I take advantage of something like a baseline to see where an anomaly comes in that's different than norm? Not a static threshold that you have to set like every day is the same. We all know that Black Friday is very different. We all know that weekends can be very different. Depends on the market, and it depends upon what your norm looks like. If the machine can learn from that, it's a very easy place to start. But ultimately, what we're trying to get to is, how do I automate the easy stuff and get it out of the way? So the focus isn't simply on how do I learn and project it to people to do something with, but if we can tie more and more to the automation capabilities, then we can automate what makes sense, and we can get people in front of the things where they can use that subject matter expertise to continuously improve. Machine learning built into it allows the algorithms to continuously improve, so they continue to understand what the new norm is. But it really comes down to those subject matter expertise to be able to get to the best optimal solution, both from a performance as well as then from the economic standpoint that Ashok talked about earlier.
That's really interesting, because that subject matter expertise, the machine learning, ties into the discussion we've had earlier today in the sessions. That is the talent, the skills, either whether it's developers or folks who know how to work with these systems. And I don't dare call them legacy systems anymore, right? But I'm wondering, Scott, is machine learning, can it serve to kind of fill some of the gaps where, say, the staff doesn't have the deep experience on a mainframe? Is this a useful thing to think about?
Sure. So our operations center, it's run 24/7. It's always manned. Now, in that data center, there's a definite bridge skills gap in being able to see there's an issue and red alerts come up and messages come up. It's very difficult for the operations staff to be able to get the right people involved. So it ends up being multiple call outs to multiple places. We were talking about the SMEs. You don't have SMEs on call 20, at the data center waiting for that problem. So you really want to get it into the engineer's hands as fast as you can, and this really facilitates it, especially if you add on the automation piece. Because a lot of the issues, you can create automation, and instead of having a manual process, you become a much more automated, much more streamlined process with little room for error.
Frank, I'd like to invite you to weigh in on that automation. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's very important. One of the things I've been dabbling a little bit in this area just because I think it's going to impact all of our customers. And one of the things I struggled with was that the terminology and the technology is completely new, and a lot of the messages coming across are aimed at a distributed environment. They talk about reading Twitter messages and that sort of thing. So it doesn't really resonate with old guys like me. But the other side of it, as I looked at it, it wasn't always clear. Something is, it's like a black box solution, like IBM ZAware was originally, where it would decide itself, what processing it would want it to do, or is it more of a toolkit like Ops MVS, for example, where the customer uses these functions to build their own solution. And I think we're probably moving maybe to a bit more of a hybrid solution, so that these products will talk to the automation that you've already built. So they leverage your skills and the infrastructure that you have there and the money investment, and then apply the intelligence on top of that. Instead of having something that's completely self-contained, I don't think really makes as much sense as building on top of what the customer already has.
Yeah, Jeff, any thoughts about that as machine learning kind of as a proxy for some of that talent gap that we're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen from many of our customers in our validation programs that this isn't mainframe for mainframe's sake. This is, I'm trying to look at how from mobile to the back-end data that sits on the mainframe, how do I manage the performance across the board? How do I look for issues and predict the patterns before they show up? So on the one hand, we want to be able to hit that hybrid generalist that says, I'm looking at federated insights that those products, those solutions under the covers can feed through things like machine learning and analytics. But how do they work together, combined, so that then ultimately I can automate off of it? If I can look at an environment and shift from a mean time to resolution or response to a predictive time to avoidance or automation, then I can have the SMEs spend more of their time on doing what they want to, the fun stuff, the optimization, the innovation. It's not sitting on a bridge call to figure out whether one of the 40 actually had a problem and it was their fault in the first place. So we certainly see a lot of that. We certainly see from a skills standpoint that it's allowing us to leverage and share that tribal knowledge better, which I think is really what it's all about.
Yeah, Scott, how does that work in your shop, the tribal knowledge, you know, the sharing, is that?
So our shop is it's really good in that way. We have a lot of knowledge across the board, and using the proactively coming up with the solutions, or coming up with the procedures to find these problems is it's changed a lot over the last 5 years. I came into an infrastructure that didn't really have an automated, cohesive network of people, and we've really built that up over the last few years. And now we're in an area where a lot of the people are trained on multiple different areas, and there's a lot more skills that are being filled that otherwise wouldn't.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. We've talked a lot today. We've kind of put the mainframe in the context of digital transformation, and you know, it's not a, you can't think of it really as kind of a standalone island anymore. It's part of this overall IT infrastructure, and it sounds kind of like that went on at your shop. What drove you to think in terms of, you know, the machine learning and operation intelligence? What was the genesis of that for you?
So we've had a lot of different issues, a lot of problems that have come up, and the proactive approach. We have so much data out there. Yeah. There is days, years, weeks. There's years worth of data. There's ways on the open system side. We implemented a few different processes that are able to, as real-time data comes in, as real-time issues pop up, there are spikes, and you can compare that data through a week ago, a day ago, a month ago, or a year ago, and use that trending analysis, like you're saying for Black Friday. You know that's going to happen, and when it compares for a year ago, it's not going to be a major issue on the system. Whereas if that happens on a random Saturday, then that's obviously going to throw red flags out there.
Exactly. Jeff, I'm sorry, it looks like you wanted to weigh in. Is that?
No, it's just that's one that we've heard time and time again. So it's certainly something that resonates with us. It's also why we're trying to take that approach where we can federate insights. We know it's not just about, you know, CA software or the mainframe. That how do you spread that across the board?
Exactly. Now some of this, you're doing it. It sounds aspirational though for some. Frank, where are folks on that? And we talked about the maturity, the adoption curve, but what are you seeing in the field? Yeah,
most of the customers that I have been working with have been dabbling in this area. They tend to be the larger, more complex customers. Mm-hmm. And they've been dabbling with things like Splunk and Elk and so forth, which are open solutions. But it was largely sort of homegrown. You know, they would take these tools and then try to build their own intelligence on top of that. And they are obviously designed for an open distributed world, so they don't really come with any mainframe insight as part of those you know, products, or we call them solutions. But now I think we're seeing more people, so that sort of indicated that people acknowledge a need for this capability. But now I think we're seeing more products like OI from CA, IOAZ from IBM, that have the intelligence, you know, the analytics, the ability to input all different types of data, SMF data, syslog, sysview, and so forth, and then give the customer back, you know, real insights or connections to their automation. So I think it's still pretty early days yet, and I think part of the holdback maybe is because it's such a new technology and terminology. It takes people a while to get comfortable with it, but I don't think there's any doubt that we have to go that direction. I don't think we really have any choice. If you look at the other platforms and what they're doing, and we're part of that world, Which is that mainframe isn't an island anymore. So I think we need to play in that.
Jeff, I'm sure all this information kind of gets distilled into how CA Technologies thinks about your roadmap and your products. Talk a little bit about what you're delivering in this space and kind of what you're thinking about for the future.
Yeah, so when we started down this path, there's a big focus around how do we leverage what we've been doing around agile development, continuous delivery, continuous validation to come back and say, okay, customers, we can do just about anything with this kind of technology. We can produce a toolkit that puts it all in your lap. Where do you want us to start? And there was a big focus back on, man, systems and performance data, that's really complex and really hard to get a handle around. So our first focus was on, well, our own products are the ones we know best. We deliver this data that you track for years. Let's make sure that we understand that data. We can see what a baseline of that data is. We see what patterns start to come with that data. So that's what we initially focused on with anomaly detection. So instead of giving that open toolbox that can do anything for anybody but puts the work back on the customer, we delivered a virtual software appliance that specifically focused on anomaly detection for that style of data. Since then, we've opened it up to network feeds. We're opening up to storage feeds. We're sending it off and linking it with our automation tools so that not only can you actually manage it more intelligently and more proactively, but you can automate some of the simple stuff and get it out of the way like we talked about before. And the next up is it's an open environment. So it's not just about our tools. It's about what are you already using with, say, SMF records or the open APIs to take on different machine learning algorithms or deliver that out to other data lakes that our customers have already established, or connect to those cross systems with some of our CA tools, but also other environments as well. So pushing that open ecosystem is where you'll see the majority of our time focused. Now that we understand how it works within our own stuff, without having that initial use case, without having that initial experience, we quite frankly wouldn't have learned enough through the customers in order to put it back into the product, and we're at a much better place than we were before.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. We have a couple minutes left. I want to give each of you a chance to kind of sum up the key takeaways. And Scott, for your peers out there, what are a couple of things you want them really to take away from your experience?
Sure. So it's been quite a journey in the last few years, watching an environment and watching these people and watching the open systems really take advantage of all these products out there that give you insights into any issues that are arising, any patterns that are recognized. And the man, I've been saying it for years with all of CA's suite of products. You have your automation tools and your SysView, your performance metrics. All that data is there, and everyone's talking big data these days. Why not take advantage of it? Use that and be able to bring that in and give you a great single pane of glass insight to what's going on in your system. If there's going to be a failure, kind of a predictive time period of how long you have to respond.
I see a big data panel in our future here. Frank Kine, final thoughts, couple of takeaways for the audience.
Well, I think that the area that our company, Watson Walker, focus on is SMF data. And traditionally, I think people have viewed that as been like a window into the past. So what happened yesterday or last week or last month. What's changing now, I think, is that with the ability to access SMF data in real time, the streaming SMF data, I think the possibilities really are limitless. If you look at the huge, there's 1,000 pages in the SMF manual, most of which describe the information you can get in SMF data. So honestly, pretty much anything that you could want to know about your ZOS system, the information is there if you know where to look. Now that you have access to that in real time and you have these analytics tools, I think the only thing stopping what we can do is people's imagination and trying to use the new paradigm that this is real-time data, not historical data.
Jeff Henry?
Yeah, I guess two things. First is, I keep coming back to it's not all about the mainframe, but this is a mainframe virtual summit. So the key here is the focus on what's unique, what is unique about this platform. And when we're talking about doing analytics, having that analytics run close to the data keeps it in near real time, keeps the latency down, keeps us being able to move quickly. Obviously, we want to work with the rest of the systems as well for any of that forensics activity after the fact. The second piece I would throw out is simply thank you. I mean, without this validation work, without these kind of partnerships, we would never be where we're at. And then a plug for the folks watching. come join our validation programs. This is how we actually do agile development together collaboratively and how we prioritize our work. So thanks again.
So with that, we are at the end of our time for this session. I want to give a big thanks to our panelists, Scott Broad,
Thank you.
Jeff Henry,
Thank you.
and Frank Kine.
Thank you.
Now, don't go anywhere. Coming up is our final session of the day. Stay tuned. Don't forget, great resources available in the resources section of your player. And Frank, we can tweet. We're live tweeting this. It's the hashtag is Mainframe Summit. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.